The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Well, welcome back to another installment of Living United with Nashua Business. My name is Mike Affelberg. I'm with the United Way of Greater Nashua, and we're joined today by Mark Berube, who is president of Eaton and Berube Insurance. Mark is a native Nashuan, and I'm very excited to have him on the show and tell a little bit about his story. So thank you, Mark, for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, well, welcome. So I always start out with a little bit of a truth in advertising segment so that people know the connection between yourself and United Way. This is not a show about United Way, it's a show about you and what you do in your community. But I always want people to know that connection as well. So your company, for many years, has run a very nice United Way employee campaign, so you're contributors, which we appreciate. And also you participate heavily in our Day of Caring, which we'll talk about a little bit toward the end of the show. So thank you for that. We appreciate that support and everything you do. So I want to start giving our viewers kind of a sense of who you are personally, your personal story. I know you're a native Nashuan. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about what's it been like to grow up in Nashua. What have you seen over the years? How's the city changed for you as a native? I always say that because I'm not, so I'm always really interested in the story.
Well, as I'm sure you can imagine, it's changed quite a bit over 50 some odd years. And I went to all the Catholic schools in Nashua. Then I went to Bishop Girton, UNH, back to the family business in Nashua after I graduated. So I am not only a Nashua native, but a New Hampshire born and bred, and I love it here.
Yeah.
Way back when, like when the show Cheers, where you would walk down into the place and everybody knew you.
Everybody knows you.
Well, it was like that.
Yeah.
And long-term families in town. Still that, we still have that to some degree, but nothing like it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. There's a lot of newer people to town, and it's changed things. I don't think it's better or worse. It's just changed it,
So, are you second generation Nashuan, third generation Nashuan? Are your parents born and raised here as well?
My parents were born and raised here. My grandparents came from various locations in Quebec.
Okay.
Around 1915.
Okay.
So it's been about 100 years that we've been here.
So French Canadian, there was a huge influx back in the turn of the century. You're part of that.
I am. Yeah,
Awesome.
They came down to work at the shoe shop, or the shoe factory, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you in the span of a couple generations, not just yourself, but a huge change in what your family has seen over the years.
Oh, yeah.
Your parents still alive? Or?
My mother is. My father passed away many years, like 27 years ago. And my mother just celebrated her 76th birthday.
So what would she say about growing up in Nashua?
Probably would take what I said and went a little bit further. It was even smaller, and she also went to the same Catholic schools I did.
Yeah.
And went to Nashua High School. Still knows much more than I even do. Her class and
That's
and
awesome.
so forth. So it was just it was a smaller and more people who grew up here than we experience today.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have, I think we're blessed with kind of a nice, unique mix of new and old, native and newcomer, even business new and old. It's Nashua's evolved into I think it's a very vibrant, becoming a more vibrant community in that way.
Yeah, I agree. And you're obviously newer to the community, so I feel like I need to ask you a question.
Well, go for it.
How do you, relative to other places you've spent time, how would you compare Nashua? What makes it unique?
Well, that's great. You're the first person who's come on the show that's actually asked me a question, so I appreciate that. So I grew up in California, and we originally, when I graduated from college, we ended up moving to Rhode Island, sort of first job out of college. And the company that I was with, then a couple of years later, we transferred with them and moved to Texas, and then moved to New Hampshire, and then we moved away for a bit and went to Illinois, and then came back. So I've been a little bit more like around the block, and I lived in Germany for a couple of years as well. My wife is a native German. So my perspective is I absolutely love this community. I'm in love with this community. And for me, what's interesting and unique is it's just a very deep, broad tapestry of life in a very small community. I think that's unique. We have a very diverse population. We have a very diverse...
Much more diverse than when I grew up.
Yeah, and I love that about Nashua, that it's good diversity. It's people who really seem to pull together. You don't see a lot of infighting or sort of clannish type behaviors. But I also love the fact that it is the gate city. It is the gateway to so many things. It sounds cliche, but going to the mountains, going to the beach, going to the city, you can do it all from here very easily. And also you can be here and experience a lot of different food and culture and people. So for me, it's great. I just think it's an awesome place.
I was at a Rotary Club meeting yesterday, lunch, and it was actually a joint Rotary Club meeting. It was like 7 or 8 clubs represented there, because we were lucky enough to have a gentleman named Don Kingsbury come to talk to us, and he is employed by the Gates Foundation, but is on loan to the WHO, the World Health Organization, because the Gates Foundation is trying to do some pretty huge things in this world. And I'd like to take people at face value. I don't think he was trying to be a politician. So he started his talk by saying that he had a couple of farms in New Hampshire. He had a tie to New Hampshire in Fitzwilliam and Peterborough.
Sure. And
he loves New Hampshire. And I've been here, there. I mean, he did the same thing as you, and then twice as much.
Right.
And right now he's in Geneva, Switzerland for some time. And he said he calls New Hampshire home.
Yeah.
He loves this place. So I feel fortunate that I grew up here.
I think that's...
I've been around, but not as much as you.
Well, and it's not, it's just life takes you where it takes you, right? But I also, one of the other things I really love about New Hampshire, maybe that's New England in general, but I don't know a lot of other places in New England, but I do love the, this kind of Yankee stubbornness, if you will. When we lived in Brookline, before we moved to Nashua, I was involved in town politics a little out there, and you go to town meeting and people are fighting, and they're fighting till 2 in the morning about, are we going to buy a new tire for the fire truck this year? Well, I don't know, and it's just so great, that kind of give and take. I love it.
And I actually think it. You made me think of our whole primary process and how all the presidential candidates come in and they meet people face to face, and that's it's a huge opportunity for the state of New Hampshire and the people. But I also think it's a huge opportunity for the people that come in. What's the gentleman's name? I'm getting old. That he did well in New Hampshire from Ohio.
John Kasich?
Yes. Yeah. Again, he's a politician, but I'm going to take him at face value. And he basically said doing all these town meetings helped, I don't know if it changed him, but it inspired him, or it gave him things to think about that he hadn't maybe thought of in the past. So I think it's a unique place.
It is. That in particular is so true. The whole political process. I compare that to in California, the community I grew up in was the county had about the same population and about the same geographic size as the state of New Hampshire, and so for us I never met my state rep. I wouldn't have expected to have my congressional representative. Wouldn't have expected to be able to do that. Any one of us probably, if we really needed to, could get the governor on the line probably by the end of the afternoon, and that applies to so many people, and it's not
Or at
because
least an executive counselor
yeah
that could get to the
yeah
governor.
yeah or exactly or we'll be at a business after hours. I'm not sure if you're going tonight at the chamber, but there's probably going to be 5 or 6 state reps there, and that kind of interaction, I think, keeping politics close to home makes this a really, and it's one of the things. It's a unique thing, and it's also one of the things that makes New Hampshire run.
It's unique. The only thing I would say is, and God bless the people that stay up till 2 o'clock in Brookline
They do
fighting over a
Yeah.
wheel on a truck. I'm not going to do that. And we have it's like the 3rd largest legislative body in the world.
Yeah.
So just like anything,
Yeah.
there are some good things and some bad things. Sometimes it can be, I'm sure, a difficult and arduous process to debate things in our house.
That's true. It is true. I did want to talk a little bit about your business, so being cognizant of the time and make sure we get to those things a little bit too. So Eaton and Berube, you've been the owner. I think you bought the company, I read somewhere 1991?
No, it was 2001.
2001. And you guys have done really well. I should also say you're our insurance company. Beth does great work for us.
Thank you.
Maybe you can describe sort of the path. Where have you been? Where are you now? Where do you see yourself going in the future as a local business?
I'd like to, if it's okay, because you made me think this, to just give a little
Please do.
long-term history, as
Please do.
opposed to we sell home and auto insurance,
No,
and
no,
business
please.
insurance.
Yeah.
I'd prefer to do that, but the actual Edgar R. Karen agency started in 1941 in Nashua, and our agency in the early 70s then became Karen and Berube Insurance, because my father joined with Eddie Karen. And it's funny because I started in the business in '85, and I went and we had to, shortly thereafter, right around 1990, we had to clean out the office we were in at 339 Main Street, right, pretty much facing Ald Street and the Hunt communities across.
Gotcha.
So we moved from there. My father had died in 1989, and I'll get back to that. But we were there, and I'm cleaning out things, and I found a financial statement from 1941. And this was like almost 50 years later.
Wow.
And Mr. Karen, his revenue for 1941 was $181, and his expenses were $163. He made $18 in his first year in business. And then he brought my father into business in the early 70s. It became Karen and Berube Insurance. My father was owner for 15 years. He died in 1989. I had been with him for about 4 years.
Okay.
To make a long story short, the agency, I could not perpetuate the agency. It wasn't possible. Yeah. So luckily we were able to, my father's estate, he was remarried, and my father's estate was able to find a buyer. His name was Cy Tebow,
right,
of the Eaton agency in Milford.
Okay.
And he purchased the agency in its entirety in 1989. So when people ask me, is it a family business, I say yes, no, and then I guess yes again.
Yes again, right, exactly.
Because he was the owner of the agency, the entire agency, Eaton and Berube, from 91 to 2001, and then I bought the business from him.
Okay.
And Then in 2006, we bought St. Laurent and McCardle Insurance. A lot of Nashua natives will recognize that name. In fact, I'm told by Peter McCardle that the original agency that they had in Nashua dates back to around 1870.
Wow.
So we've been.
There's a lot of legacy
Yeah.
in your business.
And I've been the owner for the last 15 or 16 years, and to be completely candid, not only is New Hampshire a unique place, it's a great place to have grown up, great place to raise my family, but it's been great to me from a business perspective.
Right.
We've done better than I could have ever imagined, so I'm appreciative and
So
thankful.
what's the future?
Well, that's a good question. People who know me will say that, well, I just want to ski and golf more at some point.
Well, yeah, I know you're an instructor, a ski instructor.
I used to be, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, you can go back to that. And,
Could.
Yeah.
Could. I'm not sure anybody would listen to the old man teaching them anymore, but back 20 years ago, I was okay. I did a lot of teaching up at Loon Mountain, which my family still goes to pretty much every weekend. We own a small condo in Lincoln.
Nice.
It's been a great family thing for, I have 3 kids, 2 boys, 13 and 17, and a daughter who's 15. My wife and I have been married 20 years. We just celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And
That's
we
fantastic.
have to me, I'm going to plug skiing. It's the best family activity that has ever been created.
So I'll say scuba, but we can agree on doing
How do you
something.
talk to each other? Can you talk to each other when you're scuba
No,
diving?
but that's why it's the best family activity going.
That makes sense.
In all honesty, with scuba, you use a lot of hand signals, and there's a whole, it's a whole different language down there.
Yeah.
Because you do have to communicate, but you don't have a lot of in-depth conversation. That's for sure.
I didn't mean to skirt your question. I hope to continue doing what we've been doing. I've been the owner for 16 years. I have no plans on any imminent changes. We just try to get better at what we do each day. So.
And it's full service. It's every kind of insurance except for maybe health insurance, right?
Yeah, we used to have what we call a benefits department. We used to do health insurance, and we still do some life and some other financial planning type stuff, but very little of it. The gentleman who used to do that, Tom Weldon, retired.
Yeah.
And when he started to talk about that, we actually got together with a business called Granite Group Benefits that's located in Manchester. The owner is also a Nashua guy, Brian McLaughlin, who I knew, and all this new healthcare stuff, I didn't want to.
It's kind of a whole world in and of itself.
You got to be a specialist, and so they specialize there, and we specialize in. We call ourselves a P&C agency, a property and casualty. So we do the commercial insurance, for example, for United Way, and we do a lot of personal home, auto, boat, motorcycle, life. So we do that end of the business.
Oh, so that's a great story. I love the legacy of going back to the 40s and then even earlier, beyond that. That's amazing that you can draw like a bead all the way through generations of the business.
Yeah, I like history anyway.
Yeah.
I like watching the old movies and learning something new by watching a movie about World War II or something.
Yeah.
And so it's neat to have that perspective.
Yeah, and we were there doing something at that time.
Right.
So, and one thing I definitely wanted to talk a little bit about is you personally are very active in the community and do a lot to give back in a variety of ways. I wanted to talk about some of those, and also through your business. And you encourage that. So I think that's an important thing for people to understand. Part of me is like, I'd like for other business owners to know the different ways in which you can get involved and make a difference. A lot of people want to do that. They might not even really have an idea, though, how to start, what to do, where they can help out. So maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the ways in which you personally and in the business, do give back?
Well, you just made me think of something that we do during the holidays. And I don't want to slight this tradition that we have where we send out holiday greeting cards as
Right.
businesses.
Right.
Or,
Sure.
but that costs money
Yep.
to send that out. So for many years now, we've been picking a local charity, nonprofit. Whatever money we would have spent to do that,
Yeah.
we spend on, first we give a donation to that organization, and then we do either a newspaper ad or a radio ad, or both, telling people and other businesses
Right.
what we're doing. We're giving our what money we would have spent on cards to the front door agency.
Right.
And then we describe what the front door agency does
That's fantastic.
for, in
Yeah.
some sort of commercial, and say, we encourage you to
Right.
do likewise for the front door or any other
Yep.
nonprofit you feel strongly
Mm-hmm.
about. I just think it's smart business.
Right.
And I'm going to try to say this the right way, but I think Nashua, what makes Nashua, and you were kind of hitting upon it, that it's still around, is, and it's still around in business, but it's more dynamic and difficult. But I grew up in a world where if you scratch my back, I'm gonna scratch yours,
Yep.
and I'm going to do all I can to help you. I'm going to do business with you because you'll be more successful. Hopefully, you'll do business with me. I'll be more successful.
Yeah.
Then we can, hopefully, both of us, what makes New Hampshire unique, and especially Nashua, is this whole thriving, large, nonprofit environment that you know
Right.
about. And they're doing such great work to
Right.
make this a better place, so we should support those people in any way we can to
Yeah.
help them make, because if the place is a better place, not only is it better for me personally, but
Yep.
it's better for me from a business perspective.
Yeah, it's better. It's a better community to live in. It's better for our everything from the quality of the schools our kids go to the quality of health care we get, property values, whatever it is. When we make our communities stronger, it benefits all of us. Absolutely.
I went to this. I have feel a need to say, it just came to me. I went to this. It was actually a Boys and Girls Club thing. That because
You're on their board, right?
I used to be on their board.
Yep.
Still very supportive in any
Yeah.
way I can. But I went to some. It was like a national consultant type person, and he came to talk to us in New Hampshire, and he had done his homework, and he said that, the story we hear about we're like one of the last in charitable contributions in the country,
Yeah.
and that to me, excuse me, is BS, and he proved it by saying, if you take, and then he made a joke, if you take the church out, which are all
Yeah.
nonprofits,
Right.
then New Hampshire comes into fourth place in charitable giving. So he said, you're charitable, you're just not very religious to that
That's true.
extent.
Yeah.
So I think, and a lot of things are happening that the state supports and doesn't support, as you know.
Right.
And the one thing, if you want to make a case that there may be too many nonprofit agencies in the state, not trying to
Yeah.
do good work.
Yeah, there are a lot of, well, I think what I do see in other parts of the state, and not as much in Nashua, is overlapping kind of missions and work. Nashua seems to have a nonprofit community that is sufficient to the task at hand, but not necessarily over, like you mentioned the front door agency. We have the front door agency that does transitional housing. We have a couple of others that do as well. But I don't think we have so many that there's fighting for resources or fighting for clients even. I think it's almost like the right mix, and so they tend to partner more, which is good. And I like seeing that. I mean, United Way, we want to see a community of agencies that partner with each other and collaborate with each other, not that fight with each other. But I do think in other parts of the state that might not be as much the case.
Yeah, it's much like our house with 400 members. It's just a complicated web that has been woven over years. And you're right. I mean, even in Nashua, there could be, and there has been over the last 15 to 20 years, some consolidation where nonprofits that really have a similar mission have either gotten together or worked together, as opposed to, as you say, fight for the same dollar.
Yeah, and they do, and they even. I mean, I sit on a couple of different committees where the nonprofits all, work together, and even like we're planning an event coming up in about a month and a half, and part of that event includes presentations by some of the nonprofits who do very similar things, but they're sitting on the same panel talking about how are we going to present this information in a coherent way to people who don't understand what we do. They don't have any competitive element to that, and that which is gratifying. I think it's the
way it should be.
It is the way it should be.
It's the way it should be. You mentioned Leadership Greater Nashua.
Oh yeah, sure. Before we started,
well,
absolutely.
I needed to bring that up because I did Leadership Greater Nashua 20 years ago. Why would I do that? I'm a Nashua native. What am I going to? I learned so much in that thing.
Well,
and I learned a lot about nonprofits.
Yeah.
And in a way, how our Board of Aldermen and how everything works.
Right.
And it's a great program run by the Chamber if you're trying to be a leader in the community or a future leader in the community.
When I went through LGN, through Leadership Greater Nashua, I found on certain days, we had been here, maybe 10 years or so, and we're pretty active in the community and with the Chamber already. I came away scratching my head going, I don't know anything about this community. There were days when there's one day when they do a focus on the arts, and we went over to the Picker building. I don't know if you did that. And I thought,
I don't know, we didn't go to the Picker building, but we had an arts day.
Yeah, I thought, wow, where am I? I didn't even know this place existed. There's people there, glass blowers and all sorts of things that you just didn't even know existed. It's great.
It is.
It's something we should encourage people to participate in. Definitely. So we only have another minute or two left. Is there anything more that you'd like to maybe talk about different aspects of philanthropy, things that you've been involved with? I know you're very involved with Rotary.
I work in the beer tent I'm a grunt worker for the Rotary Rock and Rib Fest, which has been a great, successful community event.
It is.
And, it's a great community event, and if we're lucky, we make some money that we can
It's a very creative way of supporting nonprofits. I mean, I love the idea with the Rib Fest that if the nonprofits volunteer, they get compensated, through a mechanism for their volunteer hours, and it's a great way to do that.
And beyond that, there's a whole bunch of people that go to that thing that aren't like the normal players that you would go to ask for money.
Right.
And they're able to do their ticket and buy some beer and spend $30, $40, $50, and most of it's going to benefit the local community. So it has been a really good idea that came from some of my fellow members at our Rotary Club. Nashua West, not Nashua.
West. I know. I've been slapped on the hand for describing the wrong Rotary at times. Yes, Nashua West, absolutely. But I know the other Nashua Rotary also participates and helps out as well. And I think
they do.
Sohegan, there's a younger evening group. I think they participate.
Sohegan helps. Yeah, there's all sorts of people that get involved and help. In fact, the Nashua Rotary, for full disclosure, they're over 90 years old.
Yeah.
And when they celebrated their 50th anniversary, they helped create Nashua West.
Oh, that's great. I had no idea. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, I know you'd never hear about competition other than friendly between those. So we're out of time, but I gotta tell you, nobody ever leaves like the Mike Show without a gift.
There you go.
A parting gift, and nobody leaves with a very nice gift either. So I
should have brought you a gift.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. That's not happened yet. We'll see. Maybe someday. That is a water bottle from the Day of Caring.
Thank you.
which you participate in, and
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Thank you.
And there's probably to add to your collection of maybe 12 other Live United shirts for you as well.
The guy yesterday that got Don Kingsbury's, they had this
Yeah.
African proverb, and he said, if you want to go, I'm butchering it, but if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Love that.
And I think that's
Right.
embodied in this organization. And I think if we all work together, business, personally, nonprofits, organizations like you, we continue this unique place called Nashua,
That sums
New
it up.
Hampshire.
That's the spirit of Nashua. Thank you for that. I really
you.
appreciate it. And thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.